I'm honored to be here with all of you to share the story from Indonesia, especially on the issue of feminist leadership to ensure substantive gender equality, the issue that has been given to me from from CCA. First of all, excuse me for wearing my mask because my husband is positive COVID-19 and all of us here in our home has to wear our masks. So that's why I'm wearing my mask. Can you still hear my voice?
Yes, yes, it's clear.
Yes, okay, thank you. Yeah. On the Fourth World Conference on Women in Beijing, China in 1995, the United Nations reported that the largest gap between women and men worldwide is in the area of decision-making. It is not surprising that the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action then outlined the theme women and decision-making as one of 12 critical issues that the global priority agenda for realizing gender equality. However, we know that the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action is not the first and the only one. The global commitment to the elimination of gender-based discrimination and violence against women, as well as to the promotion, protection, and fulfillment of women's human rights, has been going on for more than 7 decades. However, the existence of various international women human rights instruments does not guarantee a reduction in cases of discrimination and gender-based violence against women in the world, including in Indonesia as an active member of the United Nations. The challenges of patriarchal culture in all areas of life, the intersection of gender discrimination with other aspects, and lack of political will of leaders have proven to have hampered the achievement of substantive gender equality and gender justice. Most recently, the Inter-Parliamentary Union, IPU, and the United Nations Women, in their annual report in January 2021, stated that gender inequality continues, even though women occupying the highest political position as ministers, as well as heads of state or head of government, still have been increasing. This inequality can be seen, among other things, in the slow progress in increasing the number of women as ministers, as well as in the increasing numbers of countries where there are only a few women in government. This IPU and UN Women's Report preceded the 65th Commission on the Status of Women conference in New York in 2021, with the priority theme, women's full and effective participation and decision-making in public life, as well as the elimination of violence for achieving gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls. This priority theme shows concern and commitment to the implementation of Beijing Declaration, as well as accelerating the achievement of SDGs targets. In point 9 of its agreed conclusion, CSW 65 stated that the Commission emphasized the mutually reinforcing relationship among achieving gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls, and the full, effective, and accelerated implementation of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, and the gender-responsive implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals. It acknowledged that gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls and women's full, equal, effective, and meaningful participation and decision-making in public life, as well as the elimination of violence, are essential for achieving sustainable development, promoting peaceful, just, and inclusive society, enhancing sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth and productivity, ending poverty in all its forms and dimensions everywhere, and ensuring the well-being of all. While points 15 to 22 of the agreed conclusion emphasize the full and equal representation and participation of women in leadership and decision-making in the public sphere, in all areas of life as an absolute prerequisite for achieving gender equality and eliminating all forms of gender-based discrimination against women, and to achieve a peaceful, just, inclusive, and sustainable society. Through implementing national, regional, and international obligations and commitments aimed at achieving gender equality, including through temporary special measures as appropriate, and create an enabling environment to promote women's full and effective participation and decision-making in public life, and strengthen the voice, agencies, and leadership of women and girls. Indonesia is an active member of the United Nations and fully participates in UN conferences and high-level conferences. In addition to ratifying CEDAW in 1978, Indonesia has been actively involved in CSW forums, the Beijing Conference, and the implementation of Beijing Platform for Action, MDGs, and SDGs as well. Indonesian Christian women also take part in this national and global movement. However, women participation in decision-making is not yet fully seen by churches as a human right that must be implemented legally and morally to achieve a just, peaceful, inclusive, and sustainable society. Churches, in this case, members of the Communion of Churches in Indonesia noted that the number and activity of women in the church were more than that of men. Women are active in all forms and categories of church ministries, from caring-oriented pastoral activities, educational activities, to ritual activities. On the other hand, women are very few or even non-existent in the government structures and decision-making systems of the church. The higher the position in the structure, the harder it is to find women there. This happens at the local to national level. The leadership structure and decision-making system of the church are generally dominated by men. This reality confirms global findings on decision-making as the biggest gap that separates women and men. The absence of women in the structure and decision-making system of churches in Indonesia is a direct consequence of the history of Christianization in the colonial period and the dominance of patriarchal culture in most churches. In such a context, it is not surprising that to ordain women into ministerial position takes approximately a century after the intensive evangelism of a region, or a minimum of 2 to 3 decades, or even more than 100 years after the establishment of a local church synod. In other words, the ordination of women into clerical positions in Indonesia is a modern phenomenon, generally starting in the second half of the 20th century. Women pioneers who have been proven themselves capable of earning a bachelor's degree in theology, not necessarily considered worthy of going through the ecclesiastical process to be ordained as a pastor. They were forced to wait until church authorities were ready to ordain women as pastors. The reality of the minimal presence of women in the church decision-making structure and system, especially at the top of the hierarchy, proves that gender equality in the field of decision-making that we have achieved so far have not been substantial. In the opening of opportunities for women to be finally elected as leaders at the national or synodal level is not the result of the church's systematic and strategic work. It is the fruits of a struggle. For women pastors with a gender perspective and with a feminist leadership vision, becoming a synod leader is a complex, long, and a painful struggle at the same time. They experience discrimination, marginalization, rejection, stigma, and so forth, both in the context of larger church reform, as well as in the context of the strong hegemony of certain regime in church leadership. To ensure the presence and effectiveness of female pastor or female lay leadership in church decision-making structure and system requires complex collaboration between women's network and other actors who stand for the values of equality and justice, and it takes a long time. It was only in the second half of the 19th that the women movement in the church and the ecumenical movement succeeded in fighting for the participation of women in decision making. Independently and supported by various other strategic actors, women activists, so-called feminist theologian or feminist pastor or feminist ministers, and other church reformers are diligent in increasing their capacity in various aspects, starting from developing feminist theological thinking through feminist theological training, for reinterpretation of the Bible, liturgical renewal, and so forth. Strengthening feminist leadership capacity through leadership training, sharpen social analysis skills to critically understand women's socio-political realities, establish service centers for women and children victims of violence, Women Crisis Center, and increase the capacity of their volunteers and staffs. Within this framework, it is important to mention the leadership of the women pioneers in the ecumenical movement, as well as the initiative of the ecumenical bodies or institutions to encourage reform and transformation within the Indonesian churches. In this regard, the role of the WCC at the global level, particularly through the ecumenical decade of solidarity of churches in solidarity with women from 1988 to 1998, as well as the role of regional movements and communities such as ITWOT, CCA, AWRC, as well as nationally in Indonesia through the Bureau of Women or Department of Women and Children of the CCI, roles of theological seminaries, especially through the agencies of the Persetia, and the roles of Association of Theologically Educated Women in Indonesia, or Perwati. Even though until now, access, control, and opportunity to participate in making decisions and formulating policies at the highest and even middle levels of church institution are still dominated by men. We all know that 20 years have passed since the ecumenical decade of churches in solidarity with women, which has ended in 1998. Where are we now? The struggle of women's groups and their many supporters has made significant progress. Some Indonesian churches have succeeded in producing policies that are rooted in new knowledge about the diversity of contexts and diversity of experiences of women, on a more inclusive understanding of the human nature of women and men, and critical awareness about gender justice. Several social movement initiatives emerged to encourage changes at the local to national congregational level, ranging from massive public education on the elimination of all forms of gender-based violence against women, the establishment of the Women Crisis Center, as I mentioned before, to handling structural problems such as economic injustice and impoverishment, natural resources conflict, as well as terrorism. However, the ecumenical conversation of the women's movement during the last 2 decades are still struggling with the forms, patterns, and root causes of discrimination and violence against women, which are increasingly complex, diverse, and interlocking. Among the prominent ones are domestic and sexual violence, violence against women in the context of migration, natural resource conflicts, socio-political conflicts, marginalization and multiple discrimination against indigenous women and other minority groups, as well as racism against Papuan women. Lastly, discrimination and violence against women happened during COVID-19 pandemic. Among others are marginalization of women head of family in the context of social assistance program done by the government, gender-based cyber violence, violence against people with disabilities, and violence against children, and as well as against the elderly. Apart from being evidence of gender equality, involving and increasing women participation in the decision-making system is the best strategy to address gender inequality while preventing other forms of discrimination and violence against women. Therefore, the churches need to end the greatest gap within themselves with a comprehensive approach, among others, through developing a systematic plan to prepare female cadres of church leaders, reinterpret the text of the Bible, and transforming all gender bias and misogynist traditions which are against women leadership, reforming the structure of the church, including strengthening the existence and function of the women's commissions of the church, revise or abolish church policies and regulation that discriminated against women workers or against women church leaders, produce and consistently implement new policies to protect women's rights. For example, requiring the participation of at least 30% of women in church decision-making systems at all levels, or even requiring participation of at least 50% of women, because we are now in the process of doing the global project on Planet 50/50 in 2030. It's a project that organized by the UN, that by 2030, we have reached gender equal in decision making. This transformation of the church institution is a prerequisite for the church to effectively carry out its calling and mission, to play a leadership role in creating gender equality, as well as preventing and dealing with various forms of gender-based discrimination and violence against women. My last but not least point is Indonesian churches need to integrate human rights perspective and speak human rights language, particularly integrate the vision and the agenda of the Beijing Platform for Action Plus 25 and the SDGs as well. Also, the Planet 50/50 project. This is to ensure that churches will play her key roles to make these specific global humanities missions a reality. Thank you. Rosie, that was my last comment, last statement. I over the screen to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Reverend Silvana. Welcome, Miss Carol, and same with Reverend Silvana. Around 20 minutes for your presentation. Over to you.
Thank you, Rosiana. Thank you very much, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank the CCA management and all the distinguished guests here. Hello, I am Carol. Thank you for having me, guys. And I hail from Islamabad, Pakistan. I was born and bred in Islamabad. And I would like to share a brief overview of the challenges that women are facing in Pakistan. But at the same time, as we all know that there are challenges to women in developing countries, there's also a brighter side. So I would like to shed some light on that brighter side and the opportunities that we have here in Pakistan for women that we are working on. And there's a lot that has to be done, but there's a lot that has been done already, which we are very thankful for. So I would just share my presentation with you. So from the Pakistani context, bear with me a second, I'm just trying to, so that's the flag of my country. I'm very excited to present the concept of leadership and leadership opportunities, and even the challenges that women have been facing from a Pakistani context. As a Christian woman, I believe that God has created woman as an equal part of man. And I'm sure you guys have already had some theological perspectives and discussions over over the past few sessions that you've all had. And in the very first book of the Bible, Genesis, we see that God created woman to be a helper to man. So he said that I will create a helper suitable for man. And I think this is an amazing and powerful perspective, to know that there are certain things which only women can do, and that their help and their support is required by others in the society. In terms of Pakistan, if I would like to share some statistics which were officially compiled. In terms of Pakistan, 48.54% of the total population comprises of women. And which means nearly about half of the population is the female, population. And cultures such as Pakistani culture and some others have evolved from patriarchal cultures with a history of mistreatment of women, of having unrealistic expectations from them, women not enjoying their rightful place in the society. Traditionally, girls were mostly considered to acquire only basic education. In Pakistan, things have changed a lot now, but traditionally, because it's always been a patriarchal culture, girls, they were only considered to acquire basic education, and the moment they reached puberty, they were pulled out of schools. Parents used to think that they will be wasting money. Why to invest in their education when eventually one day they are going to get married and go to their husband's house? So if a parent had the choice of educating a boy or a girl, they would choose the boy over it, And so since I'm an educationist, my focus is more on education. But the good news is that perspectives are changing nowadays, and there are multiple opportunities for women in Pakistan. So as an educationist, for me, the first and foremost step is to ensure gender equity in Pakistan through education. For girls and for women, to make education more accessible to the 53% of the women who are not educated. According to the statistics, 47% of women in Pakistan are literate, which means 53% are deprived of education, right? Which is more than half of it. So 53% of women are not educated in Pakistan. And we can think of women who live in far-flung areas, who live in unreached areas, where girls are not considered so important that, or a significant part of the society where they should be acquiring good quality education. But education is a basic human right and a huge necessity, especially today. So I just want to explain what I'm trying to say here through a beautiful quotation, which I really like. I love this quotation. And it says, "The hand that rocks the cradle, the procreator, the mother of tomorrow, a woman shapes the destiny of civilization." How beautiful that is. So a girl, I believe, has the power to change the world. It is a fact. And yet girls are more likely than boys never to set foot in a classroom. That is heartbreaking. There are multiple different organizations, including my own organization, Park Mission Society. There's UNICEF and so many other organizations that are contributing to this cause. We give opportunities of internships to young men and women. We are also offering them with mentorship and counseling sessions to build their confidence and to change their perspectives about themselves so they can have a positive self-image, about themselves. And so many organizations are working on it, and also for victims and survivors of child marriage, displacement, deprivation, sexual violence. But there is still so much we need to do. So for me, this is the fuel to my fire, that, this is the purpose of my life, aligned to people development, women emancipation in Pakistan and in other countries as well on a larger scale. A girl's education not just empowers families, but communities and economies. a result of our education is that we all do better, isn't it? We all do better when, girls are educated. Having educated mothers, it really makes a difference in our lives. So I feel it's our social responsibility to be a voice for the voiceless. And I am so glad to see all of you present here, contributing and using your platform, your voice to contribute to change and to assure that I really want to assure the future generations that there is not going to be a lost generation as long as we are here. Women who have learned through experiences, women who have grown through hardships and challenges and become leaders in the societies wherever we are placed and rooted by God. There are plenty of other ways to bring gender equity in Pakistan and especially in the developing countries. I would just be very brief on these. For example, maternal mortality, I believe, is an issue of gender equity because it relates to adhesive. It is an adhesive issue because it relates to women's health. And in Pakistan, women's health issues are not frequently talked about or are not talked about so openly. So I believe that providing women with better medical care facilities and female health awareness can contribute to decreasing maternal mortality and to bringing this gender equity in Pakistan, and then partnering with frontline respondents, community workers, and law enforcing bodies can help us combat gender violence and harassment. It can also bring awareness to women that they do have a right to protection from violence. And increased democratic participation, legal equity and participation can also, close this gap. In Pakistan, 33% of representation of women in both houses of the parliament of Pakistan. And then various life experiences. And nowadays, there are plenty of job opportunities for women. However, there are certain personal and certain subcultural constraints, which hold them back from entering into these jobs. Also, I believe that mentoring and counseling of women is immensely significant in helping them develop a positive self-image. The Bible says, as a person thinks in his heart, so is he. And in Romans 12:2, the Bible says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Our women, and I really, really think this is a need in Pakistan, they need to trust in their capacities and unleash their potential. Because in Pakistan, women, they keep hearing negative voices, which somehow it embeds into their thoughts as well. So they begin to look down on themselves. They stop loving themselves. They think that this is all to what they have. And that their only task is to cook and to stay at home, to make children, which all of these are good indeed. However, this is not just what a woman is made for. A woman is not limited to all this alone. I also think that challenges, at times they are a blessing in disguise. Women in Pakistan, as I said, that because of certain personal constraints, because of certain professional constraints, they cannot go out of their houses in the far-flung areas in certain provinces of Pakistan, even in villages, in small towns. So what women have done, and I am proud of this, that they have started to shift towards home-based businesses, starting from a very small scale. So it has brought a mind shift, and it has brought an entrepreneurial perspective, in their life, such as there are women in Pakistan who are doing, cookery shows. There are women who are trading over internet. There are women who are good at artwork. So they sit at home and they prepare artwork and decoration and they do designing and then they sell it off over the internet. There are women who are educated and they are doing home coaching. There are women who are selling plant pots and herbs. And these can be very good ideas, for other women as well who wish to do something, but probably, they are not being able to do it somehow, but they can do these things at their home while other women are also into it. I met a young woman who is running a home business just because she cannot go out, but she is very good in designing. So she designs dresses, combining both Western and Eastern styles and patterns, and then she sells it off to the big cities of Pakistan. Like Islamabad is a very different city altogether. It's a cosmopolitan city. We have people from everywhere in the world in Islamabad from different socio-cultural backgrounds. Women are in leadership position. You can see a woman riding a bike in Islamabad. You can see women wearing trousers and tops in Islamabad. So, this girl who is from a village, understanding the market requirement of a particular target area, she targeted this area and started selling off her goods here because she knew, and I think this is brilliant, because she knew this is where her product could be sold. It cannot be sold in the village that she lives in. And she's making money and she's becoming financially independent, which is so brilliant. So I think that along with the challenges, there are also opportunities. We just need to tap into our potential. We just need to tap into those opportunities, regardless of what other people are saying. This is where mentoring and counseling can help these women. And I would also like to talk about the 21st century woman of Pakistan. This is so beautiful. The 21st century woman of Pakistan represents such a beautiful picture. Women in Pakistan are hardworking. I really like this one line which I have written, that Pakistan is not only rich in resources, we are also rich in talent. Both men and women, and our women are extremely talented. They're hardworking. They bear great potential for leadership. More women are seen working in various leadership and responsible positions in Pakistan. So, for example, women nowadays are working as vice chancellors of different universities. There's a university in Rawalpindi. It's a twin city of Islamabad in Pakistan. And there's a university, it's called Fatma Jinnah University. It's a women's university. The vice chancellor is a woman. The chancellor is a woman. The chairperson is a woman. The head of departments of various institutions are women nowadays. We have senior academic coordinators, women working in these positions. We have women entrepreneurs in Pakistan, CEOs, associate professors. These women are meeting demanding workplace expectations. And one of the challenges that working women, face is the work and life balance. Or the work-family conflict. I am a researcher. I was reading a research paper on work-family conflict, finding that sometimes it is so hard to strike a balance between the two. And at times, some women, they don't have spousal support. And even without that, they are doing so well. I feel so proud of these women in my country. In the Pakistani context, I also believe that these women are contributing a lot to our economy. Pakistani women are contributing in the field of education nowadays, in science, medical, engineering, agriculture. There are business women, and some of the amazing wonder women of Pakistan. I just want to, share with you a few names here. There are plenty. One of an amazing examples of a Pakistani female entrepreneur is the owner of Khana Ghar. Khana Ghar is, if I translate literally, it would be food house, like a restaurant, a small, business which she has opened in Karachi. And what she is doing is that she is basically providing hot meals to low-income groups for as low as 3 Pakistani rupees in Karachi. Which is a contribution from her side, and she's also earning money. Then there is Namra Saleem from Karachi. She's a Pakistani female astronaut who traveled into space, and she's a polar adventurer also. She is considered as a symbol of women empowerment in Pakistan. Then we have Arfa Kareem. Arfa Kareem is a Pakistani young girl, the youngest, I would say, who surprised the world when she became the youngest Microsoft certified professional in 2004 at the age of 9. She was the youngest recipient of President's Award for Pride of Performance. Then there is Dr. Georgina Tabassum. a Pakistani educationist, PhD in human rights, social worker, and philanthropist. She was the only civilian who received 2 presidential awards, Tamga Imtiaz and Tamga Isar. Imtiaz means distinction, and Isar means an award for sacrifice. For her social services, which were the highest which are the highest presidential civil awards of Pakistan. She happens to be my mother. Then there's Aisha Farooq, a 28-year-old South Asia's first Pakistani female war-ready fighter pilot from Bahawalpur. And Aisha, she is so well-trained. She flies Chinese F-7PG combat planes for Pakistani Air Force. We also have Naseem Hamid, a famous name in Pakistan, who was crowned with the fastest woman in South Asia in the SAF Games in 2020. All young women, 22 years old, hailing from Karachi. Then we have on the list Mehak Gul, who is a 15-year-old Pakistani chess champion. And you see so many different fields women are contributing, sports, on business, social work. And then Nargis Mawal from Karachi, who is a Pakistani astrophysicist. So I am so proud to share these names with everybody. And there are many more women in Pakistan who are contributing to various fields. And I just want to, in the end, towards the end, I would just like to add that there is a quotation which says, people are changing, perspectives are changing in Pakistan. Although there are challenges still, we need to work on those. But at the same time, as the quotation goes, that behind every successful man, there is a woman. I also believe that in Pakistan here, we do have men, our men who support us. We do have, this man can be our father, this man can be our brother or husband, or even just a friend or colleague who, in this culture, these women, when they have achieved so much, is also, because of the support that they have been given by their family. Surviving in traditional cultures is not very easy for women without support. And so I would also like to appreciate these men in our life who help us, support us to, unleash our potential and to unleash the dynamite which is contained within us, to help us make headway up the ladder. I would also like to encourage everybody, that we are the 21st century women, and there is nothing that can, really stop us from being phenomenal citizens, excellent daughters, virtuous women, remarkable wives, wise mothers, and successful individuals contributing to our society, nation, and world as a whole. And there may be setbacks which we are facing now, or which we may face in the future. I really like this. Joel Osteen has said this: there may come setbacks, but every setback is a setup for a comeback. So we can always come back even if we fall down. We do have what it takes. It's just that we need to realize it. It's just that we need to tap into that power. It's just that we need to believe in ourselves, have faith in God, and take the next step forward. And so there may be a lot more that needs to be done, but I am very thankful for all that has already been done in my country. For I really want to salute all those women who have, gone an extra mile despite of the challenges, despite of the resistances, have become so resilient, have learned to manage their emotions, have learned to manage people and society, and are moving on and moving forward and bringing a good name to the country. Thank you very much, everybody, for having me here, for giving me this opportunity to listen to your wonderful thoughts, to be able to present mine. And thank you very much. And I would like to say a slogan which we say for our country: Pakistan Zindabad. Thank you so much.
It's time for our discussions and question and answers. And so far, I see one question. 1 second, let me go. Yeah. It's from Noni Abiso. I think this one is addressed to Reverend Silvana, so I may request Reverend Silvana to comment on this. So she said that churches and Christians, transformation of churches and faith communities is pretty much depends on how depends on the commitment of churches or any communities, faith communities, to journey with the people longing for meaningful change. So what the churches can do is actually to acknowledge what people can do to bring about the social change. So what's your opinion about this statement?
Thank you, Rosie. Thank you for the comments of Noni Aviso. Yes, it's a very I'm totally agree with you. Churches should be people movement. It's not leaders or cleric movements. It's community of people who are who have same how do you call it who have shared same dreams and theological vision about their self and about society. So, but unfortunately, a lot of some churches are there are two main character of common character of churches in Indonesia. The first one is churches that inherited colonial characters, so hierarchic, they are very they hold strong old Dutch traditions on structural things, and also the other side, the other part, the other churches are having a very strong how do you call it, a very strong ethnic and traditional characters. So they have their own cultural mechanism, cultural values, cultural mechanism that gave a big impact on how they deal with social issues that are facing by the common people in the church, even in the church, not only common people outside the church. So that's why I think it is very important for us churches in Indonesia, I'm talking about churches in Indonesia, to develop our people theology, our a specific, based on our specific struggle, specific contextual struggle. Like I have heard, for example, our brother and sisters in North Moluccas, for example, they in a very small and specific congregation, they develop a theology of banana. What do they mean by theology of banana? Those people are farmers. The members of the church are farmers, predominantly farmers, and they have banana everywhere in their place, and they start to to respect and to give a theological meaning to their context, especially in this context, is to their how do you call it, their richness in how do you call it, in richness in how do you call it, I miss that word. Yeah, they know that banana is their life, so it and people see banana everywhere, but it seems that they don't give enough respect to the richness that God has gave them. So that's why some theologians, some local ministers try to give more meaning, more theological meaning, and they start to believe that banana is a gift from God, that they must respect, and they have to develop their, how do you call it, their way of farming, so that they can live from their local richness. So it is theology of banana theology is very simple, very humble theological thinking from people at the grassroots level. So that is one example. I know there are a lot and many other examples from Indonesia, but I think there is also one point is there is a big gap between progressive theological thinking that are developed in the seminary and theological thinking or theological praxis developed in the congregations. So in seminary, we have talked about a beautiful liberation theology things, thoughts. We have talked about a strong post-colonial theology themes. We have talked and we have struggled with a feminist theological thoughts, but we have to ensure that this beautiful and strong messages from these progressive theological streams have to be translated in the life of common people. Otherwise, it will stay as a high level discourse between theologically educated people and people at the grassroots level don't know about that good things, and they have learned good things from the world. So I said to many of my friends, I said, listen, as church, we think that we want to be, or we are called to be, the salt and the light for the world. Please think about it. Are we really the salt and the light of the world? Because we don't deal with the issues of justice in the church. We refuse to talk about sexual violence and to take responsibility to eliminate sexual violence or any other violence in the church. And at the same time, outside the church, government, NGOs, women movement, whatsoever, there are many names of it, they are all struggling to educate and to educate people about the importance of women's rights and children's rights and any others minority rights and churches. Some churches, not all. I have written in my presentation, not all, but some churches are still absent in talking about that kind of issues and behave like they don't know about sexual violence. And I have a current experience this 2 months. I have accompanied victims of sexual violence, which tried to have support from the church, but it's very, very difficult to talk to church leaders. So I think this kind of situation is, I don't know, some churches in Indonesia still facing this kind of situation, but I know that many other churches are making very progressive and prospective futures. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Reverend Silvana, for your response. Yeah, it's true that actually churches, especially for the church leaders also and the theologians, it is our task to bring all those high discourse and all the difficult terms and everything, and translate it in our church members' language so that they can easily understand and can bring that value, can bring that teachings into their everyday life.
And
yes,
Rosie,
yes.
And at the same time, I would like to highlight these issues, and at the same time, using the human rights as their second language of the church.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, that's true. So not only talking about all the biblical terminologies and languages, but also to slowly but sure include the human rights perspective. Yes, thank you so much. Maybe Miss Carol would like to add something on this discussion.
Yes, thank you, Rosiana. Thank you, Silvana, for sharing about Indonesian churches. And I did not have awareness of what's going on in Indonesia. So through your session, I also came to know a lot of new things which I wasn't aware of. So thank you very much. That's all I want to say.
Okay, thank you. I saw a hand just now. Okay. Not anymore. Okay. Anyway, friends, yeah, we still have some times. If you want to voice out your thoughts, feel free to use the raise hand feature. And while waiting, oh, yes, Miss Era Villa Maga.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to congratulate the beautiful women who shared their experiences, their reflections. Although there are small of this impact in our own countries, but this is a good acknowledgement, and it calls for us to celebrate. We are in a celebratory mood that the women's struggle for gender equality is a long struggle that we are treading on. But we are happy to hear stories, beautiful and inspiring stories, especially the Dr. Carol shared and also other countries. So I think we could congratulate the women. Even we are on distance, we are not facing each other physically, but through the Zoom meeting, we are able to convey the achievements, the positive attitudes that we have. Thank you to CCA and congratulations to our speakers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your kind words. Yes, any other comments or response? Okay, if not, I'd like to address, actually just ask you, Reverend Silvana and Miss Carol, if you can provide some sharing of your experiences, like some example from maybe from your church, like how to include women, more women, not only women, but more women to be in the leadership position. Especially like, sorry, I'm Indonesian, so I know that some churches are really struggling. And I know in Pakistan also, some churches are really like restricting women to be involved in the church ministry. So if you can share some example from your own context and experience, so it would be enrich our discussions and experience as well.
Sure. Thank you, Rosiana. In the Pakistani church, we have women who are being involved in leadership, how they are doing it. They are training young girls from their teenage in the youth groups, to be able to come forward and to share messages, leading devotions. I also think that leadership can be developed by giving them experiences of leadership. Sometimes we are not able to, we think that we cannot do it until we do it. Right? So I think that confidence can be greatly built in women by allowing them and by giving them opportunities of leadership. For example, I'll give you an example from my own life. When I was a child, my mother used to literally push me to go and speak publicly. And at that time, I used to think, why is it even needed? She would ask me if we are in a church meeting and the pastor has an open call for anyone to come for scripture reading. So she would say, okay, Carol is going to, lead this and Carol is going to do that without even asking me. And at that time I used to say, Mama, this is not even required. Why are you pushing me to do it? But with the passage of time, I realized that I became so comfortable talking in front of people, and there was no, there was no phobia, there was no fear of standing in front of a group of people, a bunch of people, and praying and doing scripture reading. So these were the experiences which my mother gave me, and I think a lot. Church can contribute a lot in it. Parents can contribute a lot in it. I am blessed with 3 beautiful daughters, 5, 3, and 2. Are their ages, and I am training them to be confident women right from now. I give them opportunities to present their thoughts in front of me. I give them opportunities to disagree with me. I give them opportunities to give the rationale on things, although they're very young. But my 4-year-old, she does present her rationale on why she doesn't want to do it, or why I would want her. She would ask me why I would want her to do something. And I think that church can play an important role in teaching women to be able to say no as well, not only to submit, but also to be able to say no. I think this 2-letter word NO is very important for us to say, especially we were talking about forced marriages in some of our meetings previously at work. And so I shared with them also that women need to be able to say no, if they are being pulled into it or somehow legal help is required, that is a different case. That is a different scenario. But otherwise, we don't have to comply with everything. So respecting each other's disagreements and disagreeing is also an important skill that one should learn in leadership. Churches in Pakistan are also engaging women in prison ministries. Yes, I was born in Islamabad. I was brought up in Islamabad. I used to go to Protestant International Church, which is an interdenominational church here in Pakistan, and now I'm a member of St. Thomas Protestant. It's a church of Pakistan. My previous church, my home church, used to have women ministry, prison ministry. So women from church used to go to, there's a prison in Rawalpindi, and they used to, along with all the security, the church used to provide them and legal compliances. They used to go and they used to preach there, and they used to pray for the in the women's jail. And is to pray for them and preach over there. I think these are very confident steps that women can take in a country like Pakistan and any other developing country, I would say. Then women are being encouraged to conduct women fellowships in church. There is a program called, in Urdu we call it Rafaqat-e-Khwateen. It's the women's fellowship in various churches in Pakistan, led by women. The participants are women, we have so many women in choirs singing and using their vocals out loud for the Lord. So I think these are all the steps. By giving them experiences is one of the ways women can be, I believe that no one is born a leader. It's been a long discussion. I'm doing my PhD in leadership, and it's been an amazing debate over the years. And I believe that, even if someone is born with innate characteristics to lead, it still needs polishing, and it still needs to be brushed up on by mentors, by education, by other tools. So I believe that women can be trained in leadership through these experiences, through education, through mentoring, through trainings, through life on life as well. And I think women can be great encouragers of women as well. Sometimes we women discourage other women. We can be a great source of encouraging other women by giving them, sharing, like you said, sharing our own life experiences. As a Pakistani citizen, I wrote an article last year, A Satisfied Citizen of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. I have never faced any discrimination, whether gender or, some people say it is exceptional, or some people say, you wouldn't have faced, but we have faced it. But if I talk about my own experiences from the childhood, I haven't faced any religious or any gender discrimination here in Pakistan in the schools that I have, acquired education from, in the colleges and universities that I read in. I did my MBA. In human resource management, because I scored very well. I was good in my education. I received a gold medal. No one ever said that she's a woman, don't give it to her. Or no one ever said that she's a Christian, don't give it to her. In my high school, I received merit scholarships. In my college, I received merit scholarships. In my bachelor degree, I received a Roll of Honor from the University of Punjab. No one ever pushed me back. With the support of my parents, two wonderful parents that I was born to. And so I have been working in Pakistan. I haven't been told by anyone that I cannot be promoted to a good position. I am heading a department here in Pakistan, which is the Leadership and Youth Development in Christian Society. It's a Christian faith-based organization. Most of the part of my life, I have worked in secular organizations in Pakistan. This is the first Christian organization that I'm working with. And even in secular organizations, an equal respect has been rendered to being a female. I have not encountered that, although I believe that people in far-flung areas, girls in villages, may be facing these, and they are facing many challenges, but my perspective is different. My perspective is, why can't we be strong enough to stop these things? I think that we teach people how to treat us. So for me, I have been raised by a very strong woman. I'm a very strong woman myself. I'm raising 3 strong girls. And I believe that when we learn to say no, and when we, work on developing our potentials with the help of church, with the help of our government, with the help of our organizations that are serving, we can excel, regardless of any resistance that may come our way. So that is my my perspective. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. One information just came in. Oh, Reverend Silvana, you like to say something?
Yes, thank you, Rosie. Not many of us are privileged in having opportunity to be given a leadership position outside home, even in our home. And also I know that have been given a leadership position is a kind of training, education for children when we were a child, at schools, at home, in the church, especially in the church. I was a leader among my friends in my childhood time in the church and at schools. But as I have written in my written presentation, for many of feminist women, or let's say gender critical, gender aware, how do you call it? Feminist women. Being a leader in the church is a long struggle. It's a long and painful struggle. Why? Because most of the church are predominantly dominated by patriarchal values and practices. So that's why when I read the concept note from CCA for this discussion, I read the phrase giving women opportunity to lead. It happens only, it doesn't happen, at least among us. Women in leadership positions should be how do you call it? Fought by women and their supporters. We are fortunate that we have already some significant supporters, men who believe in justice values of feminist theology or women human rights. They support us during our struggle to transform the hierarchy in or patriarchal character of the church. So my second point is the inspiration, the knowledge, and the strength of women to play their leadership roles, unfortunately, comes from outside the church. I have done a research about feminist leadership. I have interviewed like almost 10 women leaders of churches in Indonesia. Most of them are inspired and educated or learned their vision to transform the church from civil society movement. So it's really, actually, it puts a big question mark for the church, as I mean for formal church leaders, about how they think or what they think about a democratic and inclusive leadership of the church, while at the same time they keep try to hegemonize, to dominate decision-making process and decision-making structure. So that is my second point. My third point is, it is also very challenging and again, very painful for feminist women to be a leader in a very patriarchal church. Until recently, we still have heard about the struggle of my colleagues. Being the chair of the synod, she has been constantly challenged by, by a different political, let's say, different political groups in the church who want her to back off. So that's why I agree with some of you who wrote in the chat rooms about solidarity, about mentoring, about efforts to maintain a sisterhood among women, because there are many challenges, also internal challenges among us. Feminists to be able to play our leadership role, and at the same time to be able to face our own internal or our internal challenges. And there is also an issue of access to opportunities to develop capacities. I have written a few about a few of these things in my written presentation. Some of us, if I can say that some of the women leaders in Indonesian churches, we only have like not more than 10 from 100 churches. We only have not more than 10%, even not more than 5% if I include Pentecostal groups. Yeah, I'm talking only about mainstream churches, so-called mainstream churches, which are already like hundreds churches, 100, 120, 130 churches. Not more than 10% of these churches have women as their leaders, structurally, formally. But leadership is not a position. Leadership is a role. That's why these feminist groups or women groups shows and have proven their leadership, not as a formal leaders, but especially as an informal leaders who plays a very big, important and strong role in transforming church from below. And I think, and that's why the development of this movement is went slow, because it is like, we with our very limited resources, limited numbers of motivators, let's say it like that, yeah. We try to make a small move. We try to make a small transformation in the church. We have also our domestic role. Let's say domestic role. Our family are very supportive enough. I'm lucky. I have a very supportive husband, and my daughters understand my activities. My families support me in doing my domestic how do you call it, activities. Still it is, you know, very hard to commit ourselves and to give ourselves to this let's say a vision and transformative mission to reform and to transform churches. So if I can say that lucky or some feminists, if there are feminist leaders, there must be a very supportive family. Or if they don't have how do you call it, if they don't have their own family, they have extended family, then they are very supportive extended family. So supporting a family is very key for some women leaders. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Silvana. And speaking of women leadership, actually we have here one of our participants is the first bishop of the Iglesia Filipina Independiente, the Right Reverend Emmeline. So I got the information that she is the very first bishop, a women bishop from the IFI. Okay, so with that comment and sharing from both Ms. Carol and Reverend Silvana, this marks the end of this session. So friends, thank you so much for bearing with us